Hey, I'm Keith Shovelin, son of Swift. Welcome to Genealogical Pursuits. It is October 8th, 2024, or at least it will be for another 4 minutes here in the Eastern Time Zone in the United States. Just a quick wish happy birthday to my brother Ken. Now, starting off tonight, now this is going to be a slightly different episode. I have very little to update on my research. Didn't have a lot of time to do research this week, and plus I'm still hitting some of those same brick walls and waiting for a lot of things. So we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit and try a couple of different things and see how it goes. First off, thanks for joining us. And of course, I'm going to try to be on every Tuesday night, sometimes a little bit later than I would like, but whenever I'm available to make the time. Of course, here I have a meme that I shared to my blog a few years ago. Top 5 misspelled genealogy words. Number 1 being genealogy, which I missed. I kept on adding an extra O for a long time. The others I've done, cemetery I have spelled incorrect on a number of occasions. But first, let's check in with some of the previous projects, okay? So we're going to switch first to my ancestry tree of Shovelin Public, which I've been working on over the past few weeks. So continue to have some of the same problems. Garvin continues to be a block. Sloan continues to be a block. I'm trying different things in Foy now. So I tried searching for, I have the Foys in the 1841 census, George Foy and Jane Anderson with a daughter Mary, which makes sense, which fits. Now, I'm still not certain if that is our Mary Foy. There is the whole issue of there's a death certificate for Mary Foy in 1856, but then there's a Mary Foy in 1861 that's the same age in the same town. Now, I'm continuing to upend my family history by switching the Foys to George and Jane instead of Hugh and Mary. And I found that one thing that's nice about switching to Hugh and Mary switching from Hugh and Mary is that there seems to be more information out there. Today I tried a thing of, I've tried up the 1841 census, which of course has George and Jane. And then I searched the 41 census for other Foys, and there's a Margaret Foy, born 1801, living in Harrington in Cumberland in England. So same town, similar age, but it was a Margaret Foy with 3 children, Thomas, John, and George. Of course, has some confusion because there's another George. Now, this most likely meant that this was Margaret Foy by marriage. And a little bit of sleuthing found that, yes, her husband was John Foy. He just, for some reason, wasn't on the 1841 census, but he was in the 1851. And of course, 1831 did not have the names like the 1841 on onward does. So I'm exploring that a little bit more. I didn't have enough time to go in depth into that today, so I didn't have that to be able to talk about today. But I'm continuing to search with the Foys, and when in doing that, I was hinted at that I have another generation back from Jane Anderson's mother, Mary Winstanley. I believe was that they were hinting that they had the parents. I was able to figure that out as John Winstanley and Margaret Townsend. So there's a new surname for coming in the family there, Margaret Townsend. Now, I added these to the tree this afternoon at work, and here we are. It's after midnight now, and I added them and let them sit for a while, and no hints were coming up. But now, of course, it's been a few hours, and now there's John Winstanley has 11 hints, and look, they even have a potential mother. So looking at what they have, 2 free hints, so that's great. As I am on the free account here, I do all my research on my library account. So we have a death in June 1840 and a residence in June 28th, 1782. That's Winstanley Hmm. That's a slightly different spelling, different name. So that's something to look into. Seen quite a few Winstanley. There's another Winstanley, but a different spelling. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Not prepared to accept those two hints just yet, if it because the slight difference in the name, and plus I don't have anything to compare it against. I know Mary Winstanley was born in 1789 from the stuff I found before, so him being alive in 1782, we'd hope so, that he'd be at least 7 years old when he had a daughter. Uh, and then having died in 1840, that tracks. That's only, 48 years later. Let's say he's 20 years old when Mary is born. 1840, 20 years old in 1789. So in 1800, therefore, he's 31. So 1840, he's 71, which is a perfectly reasonable age for someone to live to in the 1800s. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. All right, but let's look at the new one in the family, the new surname that comes out, Margaret Townsend. All right, so this only has 8 hints. Now they suggested possible birth records. Of course, the hint record there, John and Margaret. Looking at the 8 hints Margaret has, only one of them is free, and that would be the death for June 1864, Lancashire. Going farther south to Lancashire. Then there's other, it's all different spellings of Townsend. Winstanley instead of Winstanley. Margaret Winstanley, 1841 census, which looks like there's at least one family tree that has something worthwhile. Of course, this is Ancestry's own hint that gave me this person's name. Ah, but not enough, nothing there that I'm willing to accept right now. And of course, even adding these two is a risk. I don't want to do too much research and then find out that this whole adventure here is going in the wrong direction, and that I need to cut back to Hugh and Mary. So that's where we are on the continued research into the Foys. Garvins, I'm continuing to test out the Garvin test tree. It's still the only hints it's giving to me as possible parents for Henry Garvin is James and Margaret Cobb. James Garvin and Margaret Cobb, with James Garvin born 1699, 50, which would make him 51 when Henry was born, 50 to 51. It just doesn't seem likely. So that's where we stand with Garvin's. Then I've also done, a little bit more poking on the Perriers and Chevaliers on Shuffle in Public. That's we have Louis Bazil Perrier. Still trying out different things to see if I can find anything more in the French census for the Calders or uh, Solier, and then of course Louis Bazil Perrier's wife Marie Jeanne Chevalier. Currently, that's a dead end at her parents, Joseph Chevalier and Victoire Marie Bertrand, or Marie Bertrand. No, Bernard. I've seen one record say Victoire Marie Bertrand, one record say Marie Bernard, which is close enough that it's easy that somebody fudged it up a little bit, but not quite ready to accept. And this is what looks most likely from the records I found. More work we'll have to go into. All right, so here's a couple things we're going to do different this week. First of all, so I have a standard weekly emails I get through Gmail from Google of where I do surname family searches. Basically, I ask Google to report to me any occurrences of certain surnames in the news. Mainly I'm catching obituaries, but other things might pop up. And sometimes the one ends up being all about the same person over and over again, so it's not really that useful. But I figured I'd share it with you all tonight. So I do 2 surname searches each week. First being Angevine, here. So that's for my ex-wife's family. It references is we have this week uh, Angevine who took over the reins of junior high. So that's an Angevine who's a junior high principal. Cedar Creek Junior High head football coach Jacob Angevine. That actually might be the same one. Yes, it's the principal head football coach. Uh, let's see, Flora Evangeline Ruth on Fall of the Signs at Home. Renaissance man Alan Angevine as himself in that movie. Associate Angevine de la Bibliothèque Anglophone, the library's desk. The Angevine Association of the English-speaking library. Madeline Angevine Wine. Fleur Angevine Ruth confirmed as a very fabulous stage production. See Courtney Angevine on YouTube, 873 Angevine Court, Southwest Lynchburg, Georgia, and then finally Lydia Angevine on TikTok. Next up, Shovelin Google alert that I get. I have a cousin who has passed away. Bernard Shovelin died at October 1st in the hospital at age 77 years. And Houghton in the Spring, Tynaware. So that's still over in Ireland. Here's more about him. See, Andrew Shovelin. See, this is the guy who keeps popping up in this all the time. Mercedes engineer Andrew Shovelin. Then we have the Shovelin Mattress Factory in New Jersey, who keeps on, and they have some wonderful ads. It can be quite funny seeing your own. And Shovelin is not a common surname. So when you see mattress ads using the name Shovelin, like you sleep better on a Shovelin, it's completely unexpected, but I love it. Let's see. We have Chloe Shovelin at David Andy's Homemade Ice Cream. Let's see. Larry's not see where Shovelin pops up on that, but that's okay. Jim Shovelin on X. James Shovelin in employee history, the Illinois Office of Comptroller. Alice Shovelin on TikTok. Deborah Shovelin, Remax agent, I believe. The one's not too far from here. There's several Shovelins in the real estate base. In fact, the other Keith Shovelin I know of is in real estate in St. Louis. Let's see, Alicia Shovelin from Stony Creek, Ontario, Canada on LinkedIn. Janet Shovelin on Pinterest. Jamie Shovelin, this is the artist. So I see his stuff pop up a lot. So he has a new collection up at the New Art Gallery, Walsall. Then we have Mandy Shovelin on TikTok, and finally Bree Shovelin on TikTok. It's very rare when I get to, for all the stuff I put out there with my own name on it, it is sorely disappointing that I don't see it popping up in these weekly emails. But I'll keep trying. But this could be an interesting way to approach genealogy research by trying to find cousins. And it's something you could do if you have a less common surname, either the one you have or someone in your tree that's just a little bit less likely for you to be able to, less likely to get, like, if you have a last name Smith or Johnson, you're going to see a lot of people that are most likely not family. There are a lot of Johns who had sons. There are a lot of people who were blacksmiths and Smith. That's my mother's family is Johnsons. The Perrier is an extremely common name in France. It wouldn't work doing something like this. And I only do it for these two names. And it can be fun checking it out from time to time. All right, so now the other key thing I want to talk about this week. And that is, there's an article in today's Washington Post. They've been doing a series on government, as you would expect from the Washington Post. But today's is on one of my favorite parts of the federal government, and that is the National Archives. So the article here is the equalizer, Sarah Vowell on the National Archives. Now, for those of you not familiar with Sarah Vowell, you just don't know you are. She is, of course, a writer, and she writes history, and a lot of times she writes history with a slight comedic touch. So we have like Assassination Vacation, in which she and her family, when she was a kid, traveled around the United States going to sites of presidential assassinations. Then there's Cereval Lafayette in the Somewhat United States, which talks about the what's actually being commemorated this year, the bicentennial of the Marquis de Lafayette, Gilbert de Motier, his trip to the United States after the French Revolution is over, and of course he's granted free travel again. And he had a wonderful tour of the young United States, and of course greeted as the hero that he was. So that's, if you are a reader, you might know Sarah Vowell, but I'm guarantee you've probably heard her voice if you've seen either of the Incredibles movies, as Sarah Vowell is the voice of Violet, the daughter on the Incredibles. So not only is she one of my favorite authors, as she writes these wonderful history books with a touch of comedy, but she is also a voice artist and known for two of the biggest cartoon movies of all time, being the Pixar part of the Pixar thing. So the Post has started this "Who is Government?" a series from Post Opinions, where they've asked writers to write about certain parts of the government. And for this week, they have Sarah Vowell on the National Archives, and she talked to this woman here. You see, that is Pamela Wright of the archives. The key connection is Pamela and Sarah are both from Montana, so that was sort of a connecting thing, connect them together. Sarah obviously did a lot of research at the National Archives for her books, and Pam has been at the archives for many years as charge of digitalization. Now, the key thing I want to talk about here. So the National Archives is our national collection of public documents. When I used to do research on Tuesday nights at the archives, I was mainly going through census records, but also ship manifests and naturalization records. And that's how I was able to find my ancestor, James J. Shovlin, coming to the United States, March 29th, 1855, on the SS Albion, landing at New York City. That was by poring over ship manifest after ship manifest of ships coming from the UK and Ireland to New York Harbor in that year. I knew from the 1900 census it listed what year he emigrated, so that helped me figure that out. And I had a basic idea of how old he was at that time. But then I also used the naturalization records to find my great grandfather, Louis Perrier. And these are the kind of things you can find. Now, this article talks about the history of the National Archives. So created in 1934 by a law signed by Franklin D. Roosevelt. It would be not until 1952 that the archives formally opened, and the construction of the building, just that beautiful mausoleum of knowledge on just off the National Mall on Pennsylvania Avenue, across from the Navy Memorial, and it's behind it. You have the National Gallery of Art Sculpture Garden right on the National Mall. The side facing the mall is the entrance to the rotunda of the Charters of Freedom, so the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. The entrance on the Pennsylvania Avenue side, that's the researcher entrance. You would go in there, check in your devices, and then go up to whichever floor you would go to the microfilm readers or wherever certain documents are. Now, when I did my research there, I was using the microfilm. So I got one of those big machines, and I would pick a roll and then just sit there and spool the roll and go through it page by page. When you're doing ship manifests and you know that it's England and you know what year, so I can track it down. It goes basically by month, and then I could skip over when I see Le Havre or Barcelona or Lisbon, focus on the ones coming uh, from London, from Cork, from Dublin, and from oh, I once again prove that this is a live show. Uh, the Beatles are Liverpool, and that is in fact the ship that my ancestor came over on. The album sailed from Liverpool. So the National Archives, of course, are created to drive openness, cultivate public participation, and strengthen our nation's democracy through equitable public access to high-value government records. Now, the question is, how equitable can it be if all the archives are on Constitution Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue in DC? And it's not really that accessible all over the place. And then, of course, there's the Archives Extension, Archives 2, in College Park, Maryland as well. So this article talks about to NARA Chief Information Officer Pamela Wright and how she has been working to digitize NARA's records. They have 300 million on NARA's more than 13 billion records have been scanned and posted to the internet. So that means no matter where you are in the world, you have access to those documents. One of their great achievements of note was they can release census records every 12 years. And, well, it's every 10 years, but it's 72 years from the time of that census. So in 2022, we got the 1950 census. In 2012, I volunteered as one of the transcribers going through the census records and worked for several hours reading through census pages, doing my best to decipher the cursive writing to be able to transcribe the names. And work was done between, and it was by the National Archives, but it was done with Ancestry. For the 2022 release of the 1950 census, it was done entirely by the National Archives, and the day they were allowed by law to release the census was the day the census was released 100% completely transcribed. So that was the work of Pamela Wright. And that has been extremely helpful, being able to track down names in the 1950 census. My dad was born in 1949, so I had now his name in a census. Of course, I had my grandparents previously in the 1940s and 1930s, but now I have them to get, in most cases, I'm married and now with a child, and various other family members that were the family members I knew or were just one generation removed were now open to me in this document. And it's been able to use that to connect together some others. Now, this is an ongoing project, and this is something that's going to take a long time. But when you have good people like Pamela Wright on it, and you have a Congress that is willing to fund the National Archives, to understanding that by paying for digitization, you're making it more accessible, more useful, and more democratic. And that's small d democratic, not big D democratic. So democratic as in the system, not democratic as in the party. It's been believed that it would take billions of dollars to digitize everything. So, and of course, they do not get billions of dollars. They get about $480 million in the 2024 fiscal year budget. And it's expected that actually they should probably be getting double that. And I agree. I mean, this is preserving our nation's history. Now, I mean, I work at the Library of Congress. Once again, everything I state during the course of this podcast is my own opinion. It's my own research. I'm not speaking on behalf of the library. We have the duty of copyright law. If a book is, if the author is still alive, unless the author has freely given up the rights to that book to public domain, Creative Commons, whichever, that book cannot be digitized. That book cannot be made available digitally. So that's digital, audiobook, any of that. With the National Records of the United States, they don't have that worry. Now, there is the papers of the presidents, the official papers of the presidents. There is a 20-year gap, usually. They're a bit behind. During the presidency of George W. Bush, the archivist was let go, and there were significant delays put into the processing of the records of the Reagan administration. And you can take your own guess as to what happened there. I don't know the full story. This is what details actually I can remember. So they're still trying to catch up on the presidential records, because at this point, 2024, they should now be sharing the records from the George W. Bush administration, the very administration that slowed the process. And once you get those, you get the certain things that you get more of a view of what really happened in some of these administrations. Like a new Robert Woodward book leaked today. Well, they did a planned leak of certain items from the new book. Bob Woodward is well known for documenting things within presidential administrations, going back to the Nixon administration with the Watergate investigation and breaking up, him and Bernstein writing news articles that broke open all of the malfeasance by the Nixon administration during the 1972 election. Woodward has continued to write books about presidential administrations in which he sits down with presidential staff, and in some cases, the presidents themselves. It was interesting during the Trump administration, because he wrote several books on the Trump administration, and each time he did sit down with Trump for hours, and Trump would tell him things that he probably shouldn't have, but he couldn't help himself because he felt like he was controlling Woodward, but Woodward was controlling the whole thing, such that Woodward even released all of the tapes from his interviews with Trump at the end of the administration, specifically those, including those talks about the oncoming then COVID-19 pandemic. So right now we have Woodward being able to expose some of the things, but other stuff we're going to have to wait 20 years to find out what was really going on. And of course, there are some caveats to that. Things that involve national security, they have to hold on to longer, as long as it continues to be a national security issue. The most major well-known case of that is any files dealing with the Warren Report, Warren Commission, and the investigation of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. That those files continue to be held as classified and cannot be released. President Biden had put out a statement on it when he issued executive order continuing that sentence, saying it continues to be a national security threat, that if information in those files get out, it would be detrimental to our country's security, whether that means there was someone that was a informant, spy, or whatever in those papers, that person's still alive and would be put at risk, or maybe there were implications of malfeasance by foreign governments that we're not interested in moving onward. But all these types of things are what are in the National Archives, or will be someday. So you have to applaud the work of Pamela Wright and her staff to being able to create these digital reproductions so that these files are available to the country as a whole. And you look at these long rows of bins, and just the paperwork, the maps. Yeah, this is the map storage room at College Park. And just all of this information is available to you. Of course, it also talks about the Citizen Archivist Program, encourage people outside of the federal government to take part. The National Archives is an incredible resource. I highly recommend that you use it. when doing any family history research because government files are some of the most reliable. Family Bibles may be incorrect. Obituaries can be falsified. I know that for certain in my family. I have a grandfather and step grandfather that there are known falsehoods in their obituaries. Because in one case, in order to be a bit more grandiose and uh, pompous in describing of my grandfather, and the other just a simple change in a date in order to hide one of those little family secrets that we don't like to get out there. But yeah, National Archives at archives.gov. It's also under the National Archives and Records Administration is the official name of the government agency, NARA. All this information is available out here. You have see here about citizen archivists and genealogists. You have all these things for your family history research, including charts and forms and other National Archives facilities, as there are facilities all over the United States with some archival records, and plus training so you can become a better genealogist. All of this is available there. I urge you to please avail yourself of it. I would not be anywhere near where I am on my family history research without the National Archives. And I want to make sure that these resources are getting used not only for hopes that more things get digitized and improve my research, but also that these things continue to be used so they continue to be funded and more people will get the benefit and more family histories will get uncovered, and overall the amount of information available will just expand and expand and expand. So that's it for this week. Like I said, not much on the research this week, but wanted to highlight this article and information about the National Archives. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Uh, excuse me. You can remember to check me out on Tumblr, sonofswift.tumblr.com, for where I give updates on my research. If you have a question, email me, shovelin@gmail.com. And also remember to support us if you can. We have my merch store at tpublic.com/store/swift. And if you're interested in selling your own gear, you can set up your own TeePublic store, t.pub/link/ace21. Click on that link and you get set up your TeePublic account and start selling your own artwork on t-shirts and bags and tapestries and stickers and magnets. If you want to produce things on stickers and magnets and otherwise just for your own promotion and not for sale, then I suggest checking out Sticker Mule. Click on the link in the description below and you can get in with their sign up for Sticker Mule and get some wonderful discounts, a $10 boost just to start out, and then of course access to great deals. This week's deal is a free $14 for a black t-shirt, any size, free shipping with whatever artwork you want printed on it. And finally, of course, I'm able to stream this podcast each week thanks to the great people at StreamYard. If you're interested in doing your own live streaming and want something that has a strong architecture behind it that allows you to do special things to promote your work, then you got to check out StreamYard. Click on the link in the description below, and you can learn all kinds of new things. And you could even use this whether you're live streaming or if you're just teleconferencing or just other ways of connecting with people. But feel free to check it out. Thank you all for watching. I hope this is useful to you. I hope that I'm helping you on your family history research. Please like and share, subscribe to the AS21 channel, and you can click on the alert bell to get alerts for when this podcast airs. It is listed as a separate podcast within YouTube, so you can select to just get updates for this podcast. We have a couple other podcasts and series on the AS21 channel. There's Take a Minute on Monday night. There's sometimes I share the Trekker's Delight podcast on Thursdays, Trek That on Sundays, and Keith's Friday Night Reads on Friday nights. And there's a new one that's going to be starting tomorrow called Jomly. So if you're interested, check that out. But otherwise, thank you for watching. I'm Keith F. Sheldon, the son of Swift, and good luck to you in your family history adventure.